What's up, nerds? I'm Tom, this is Aaron, Wes, we're Never Bored Gaming, and we have been playing the Descent Road to Legend app, and I gotta tell you, we kind of love it.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It's killer.
Good
it's
job,
phenomenal.
Fantasy Flight.
For real. Now, if you don't know, if you haven't played, first of all, it's free, at the very least at the time of this recording. It's free right now.
The first campaign.
Yeah, the first campaign. And what it is it's got, there's no new content. You have to have Descent. You have any of the expansions, really. But what it does is it brings you a whole new scenario that you play in a campaign format, and it kind of acts as the overlord. So you can play it fully cooperatively with your friends, but you don't really know what's coming around next. Like if you ever played the co-op expansions that they came out with, do you remember how those worked?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The book.
I don't remember what they're called, but
there was one called Nature's Ear. Regardless of what they were called. So there was like a fate tracker and some other like kind of clunky elements of it, but you would draw a card that would tell you what tile comes next. Rather than seeing a scenario book, the full scenario, you really do a dungeon crawl. And that's what this app simulates for you.
Yeah. Just like when you get to certain points, it's like, okay, this is the next tile you put out. And
yeah, and it's cool because you literally don't know. Like you can like click on something on the app and it says like, oh, this is... I'm not going to tell you anything there was, I'm going to spoil it for you, but like you don't know what's going to happen. You're like, I'm going to do this. And it goes, wait, stop, everybody stop everything. This crazy thing just happened. And so it's a little bit more like the Imperial Assault campaign, or the Overlord has like things in his book that like, oh, you open that door. Because you open that door, all of these guys are here. Whereas in Descent, you kind of see everything that's on the map.
yeah, it's pretty
Yeah, like you'd open up the Overlord, which would usually be Wes, would open up the scenario and kind of lay the whole thing out and say, okay, you need to come here to do this, this needs to happen, on this number of rounds, this will happen. Where you're right, Imperial Assault, it's more kind of like you know what your objective is, but the Overlord still has like specific plot points he's withholding from you.
Yeah.
And for this app, it is 100% that. Well, not 100%. There still are times when it'll tell you, here's your objective, but the app is still withholding something from you. It's not, okay, your objective is to do this, but hey, there's still this door that's closed over here. What's behind there?
And a lot of times you know a very like general, generic, like you want to go here and figure something out. And so you go and that's all you have to work on. And then you open a door and it says like, now your objective is to do this thing. And once you do that, it says, okay, now you can go here. So you still don't know where in the main campaign book for Descent, it says, do this, do this, do this, and do that, and then you win. And if you do this, you lose. Where in this one, you don't always even know how you would lose. Like, other than if you die, or...
Yeah, if you die a certain amount of times, depending on the amount of heroes you have. Or knocked out, because you don't die.
Yeah, which is another difference that in Descent, you can die as many times as you want and just keep standing back up. In this one, there's a little tracker, and
It's like one per hero.
It's one death per hero, basically. And so if one hero... You're playing 4 heroes... One hero dies 4 times, 2 heroes each die twice, that kind of thing, you would automatically lose.
Not almost. It's everybody dies and then one more die.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, you have that many KOs allowable, but then you're 1 KO from losing the whole scenario.
Okay.
And you don't actually like lose the scenario. Now you have to start back from the beginning like a video game, which is kind of what I thought it is. It just gives you very little rewards. It says, oh, you lost. You can't go back to that specific scenario again during this campaign, and you get like, here's 10 gold, no experience, you suck, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now go do the next stuff.
Yeah.
And actually that brings up another point. When I said in this campaign, there are actually just like a video game, it logs at the very beginning. There's like a couple different campaigns that you can have. Now you only have the one story that's in there, but like the 3 of us can say, we're going to start this campaign. And then, again, it's going to be me and Aaron is what we did. Me and Aaron started a new one with just the 2 of us, and I picked this slot to save it in. So we've got, different characters for the first one. Once the 3 of us, then me and Aaron have 2 different characters. And one of the complaints I do want to have, and I really do wonder how many people will have the same experience, is I have pretty much everything for Descent. There are a couple hero and monster packs I still don't have, and some lieutenant packs, but I have every box expansion and several hero and monster packs. So... At first, we just mixed everything together. It was awesome. You get to click and see, I have all these expansions in my collection. Now let's start the campaign. And it was so annoying because I have all the boxes, so it'd be like, oh, we spawned this monster.
I told you, if you just mix everything together, it'd be easy.
And that's what I wonder. Are there people out there who are insane and mix everything together for Descent, or do they keep them separate like a normal person would do?
Now, the one thing I can say to that I think Descent did a good job doing for people who want to keep things separate is, yes, you have to tear through all the boxes, but you almost never have to like shuffle a bunch of decks together. Like at the end of a campaign when you go to like buy rewards, it's not like you actually draw them. The app gathers all the information from the expansions you say you have, and it draws cards for you. And then you have to go through the boxes and figure out like, okay, what expansion did this axe come from? Mm-hmm. But you don't have to shuffle everything together. You can just pull that one card out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, I thought that was really cool, that it keeps track of a lot of the mess for you, especially like between actual missions. There's a lot of times mess of like, drawing cards and figure out what you want to buy, and then trying to like write down what cards you bought and write down how much money. And because when we played the campaign, sometimes it'd be a month or two before we actually got time to break it back out and play some more. So you'd have to like go find your scrap of paper and be like, okay, I wrote a note down for myself and I don't remember, like, what does this mean? I don't remember what it was saying, or even just the annoyance of trying to like, remember where you were. And this app keeps track of all of that for you, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
One thing I don't think we mentioned yet is they changed the way hero turns work.
Yeah.
That's true.
You take a hero takes a turn, a monster group activates. So they changed it to be more like Imperial Assault.
Which, since Imperial Assault is inherently better than Descent, it makes sense.
We can edit that out. And I did. The only thing I will say about that is playing Descent again. We played Descent a lot, like not when it first came out, but when we first got it. And then when Imperial Assault came out, we started shifting over to that a little bit. And coming back to Descent reminds me how much I hate that blue die.
Oh
right?
my god, the blue die.
I do like how at Imperial Assault it's just the white die and only some characters have it, right? Where every single, like, there was one time when you did like 5 in a row.
Literally 5 or 6 rolls in a row, I got a blue die. Which is, if you don't know, there's an X on the blue die, which is one of the attack dice that everyone has to roll. And if you roll an X, no matter what else happens, you missed. Yeah. Which is terrible. Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about turn order, that it goes, one hero goes, then a monster group activates, then a hero group activates, and since a lot of times there were more heroes than monster groups, the heroes still got to do a lot of stuff back to back. But what was interesting is there were no Overlord cards. At no point in the game were there tripwires or snares, which, since I play the Overlord, I love, and I make them like count out their spaces, and be like, tripwire, stop, haha! There was none of that, which they kind of... Go ahead.
Well, I mean, so while there's none of that specific stuff, there were still a couple surprises thrown at you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean...
There's like, one of the ones we played through, there was like a continuous effect that like kept happening.
Yeah.
Each round, it'd be like, alright, check. It would like try and like force Tom to check his knowledge or something. And
actually, I passed it every time, so I have no idea what would happen if you failed on that.
Which is another cool thing about it, that a lot of times in Descent it says like, if you pass, this happens, and if you fail, this happens. Which it builds that suspense. You're like, if you keep passing it, it's just every time you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happens, but I really don't want it to happen. And we haven't played it enough to see if it happens, but it would be really cool if down the road that even changed. So because then you could say, oh, well, I don't care how close I'm standing to that, because even if this happens, it just does 1 damage. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it's 2 damage. And I think a lot of that was kind of, the longer you take to do something, they kind of start throwing more bad stuff at you, so you can't like turtle and like slowly work your way through. The app is just constantly throwing stuff at you to keep it challenging.
And when you said things change, there definitely is a randomization, because it randomizes the monsters that it chooses. Because I think per scenario, it's like, well, we're definitely going to have goblins, but there's like 2 open groups. They randomize which ones they pull. They randomize how they activate, which is something that an Overlord wouldn't do, obviously. An Overlord would be like, oh, well, I'm going to have them activate first because that's more strategically better for me. However, every time a monster activates, they have a list of their activations, things that they're supposed to do. And there are a couple times, it's very rare, there are a few times when we look at like
Do, like,
the
nothing.
order, like oh they would do nothing because they try to do this and they can't, and so then they jump down to this and they can't jump back up, can't you know, and the way that the rules work, there are a few very very rare instances where the monster activates and essentially does nothing almost,
or just does something that like really doesn't make sense. That we were looking at it and we're like, well, according to this, because he does this first, he's gonna like run over here. That
And
then
run
makes
back.
none of the rest of his activations
Yeah.
worthwhile. So he's just gonna move back to where he was almost.
yeah, kind of thing. And there was one time, every activation, the monsters have like a bonus at the top. They all get +2 damage, whatever.
Yes.
It was one where it says, you know, every roll they get 2 additional surges, and it was for the Trolls monster group,
Yeah.
and they don't have any surge abilities.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed. Like that the surge, like that randomization isn't fully checked out. It's like a little bit of a bug. That like, yeah,
Mhm.
you got the surge for that. There's one time where the app like crashed on us, and we reloaded it, and it picked a whole new group. Like we already had it set up. Like, oh, we gotta reset up like the monster
That's true.
group, like because it didn't reload
Yeah,
it
the app
completely.
kind of died on us.
So it's kind of cool that it isn't, you know, completely. There's like you know that it's changing, and there are some things to work out, but so far it's awesome.
I mean,
Like,
the app came out this week, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect
no.
it to like work perfectly flawlessly. You know, I'm sure there's going to be updates, a bunch of updates recently, and yeah.
So, but you are right that we could go through the same free scenario or free campaign
Yeah.
over and over and over again, and
It'll
pretty much every time. I mean, we could choose different heroes too, but pretty much every time there'd probably be new monster groups attacking us. Probably those surprises. Maybe those would be different. That actually, I'm
So-
not sure about.
And one thing that I can say that was really cool about the campaign is in the book there, you know, between quests you actually have like you draw a deck and see what happens on your journey.
Mhm.
And I'll just tell you, I'm not going to tell you a lot about it, but we had a scenario where we had some options of what we wanted to do
on the journey.
on the journey, and it seemed really like arbitrary. And because of what we chose, something happened during the campaign.
Like in the middle of the next scenario, something like
And I'm really excited to see as we continue on, like and play, you know, more scenarios and probably play the same campaign again, what different choices do. Because it's very obvious that our choice affected it and that a different choice would have had a different result. But I think there was like 3 choices we could have made and then 2 more choices again later or something in that little bit. So
There's a lot of options.
yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to figure out how much stuff Fantasy Flight does in there that like choose your own adventure as you do this. How that's going to come back and affect you later.
Mm-hmm. And this first one was just, I think, just the 3 quests in
Well,
there.
3 quests plus the tutorial.
Okay,
Which-
that's true. Which if you can totally skip and it doesn't mess with everything. If you want to redo the campaign, you don't have to redo the tutorial every single time, which is good.
Yeah.
But I really do want to see what the ones that you pay for.
Yeah.
I want to see how much
the add-ons.
how much they cost, but how much they add to it. Because if they're the same size, I mean that would still be fine. But I would pay more for a longer one.
Yeah.
Because they're so thematic and there's so much story in there. And sometimes when we're playing normal campaigns and like, let's say Wes is reading the story, I'm not paying attention. This, with the app, it makes me pay attention because, well, I don't have to listen to Wes talk. It's great.
Yeah,
Now with that, and I wish it did it more, but when we were starting the campaign, the app actually like, read the flavor off for you. So it was, you know, Splig the, I don't know what kind of creature Splig is.
That'd be like a troll or something.
But he's one of the minis in a lieutenant pack that you get. He's like kind of setting us on this little side mission, and it actually says like, you know, you get a letter slipped under your door, and then the Splig is like, heroes, do this, and it was kind of cool that like it was in the voice, and the thematics just added so much to it. I actually felt like there was flavor text throughout the game that could have been read. That, you know, since it wasn't, I kind of wish it was. I'm sure if they did it, I would have been like, oh my god, stop talking. Let me play the game.
Yeah.
But it was a nice touch.
Well, and that's where you draw the line, because every time you tap a search token, it tells you what it does. Do you want, every time you tap it, the voice starts reading it out to you? No, stop. You know.
It's
No,
a shiny
but, like,
thing on the ground.
When a boss comes in and says something to you, or like a big event happens, it would be cool. Even, if they like the app stopped and like played a little video of like, you know, oh, this person's coming in and
Integrate more video games.
Yeah, I was about to say, so
Yes.
you just want to play a video game is what you want to do.
Absolutely.
But also on board, I don't know what you want. You're so down the middle with that.
I know, I am. But
It'd be pretty sweet.
if they're going to do it a little bit, I think it would be cool if they did it, you know?
I'd like that.
I mean, I'd be okay with that. I'm not opposed. I don't really have an opinion either way. Like, I could take it or leave it. But,
Yeah.
like, I see what you're saying. That could be cool. It could be.
That being said, I don't really like having to have an app to play a game.
No,
Like,
you can still play this game without it.
yeah, which I love that Descent. You know you can play Descent without the app, or you can play it with the app. But there is something about like going to sit down and play a board game, and then like, oh, let me get my phone out, and so we can do it. Which, you know, there's good and bads because it does a lot of randomization that couldn't happen without it.
So what you're saying is, so unlike like XCOM, it's a requirement to play the board game.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's an option for playing the board game.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. It's just one of the many, avenues that you can take down with Descent.
Yeah.
Right now you can play the base game. You have tons of expansions. You have co-op expansions. You have tons of heroes and monsters that you can add to it. And now you have an app that you can play fully cooperatively without the admittedly clunkiness of the like little fate tracker and thing that came with the original
Yeah.
co-op expansions.
And because it's fully co-op, you can now play Descent solo if you want to. And I've seen some people online who've mentioned playing it solo, and I think you're crazy because it's like hard and crushing enough, and you're with a group of people doing it.
Yeah.
Um,
It does balance well per number of players, but I definitely noticed it was harder when it was just the two of us than when it was us and Jared.
so when you guys, was it just two heroes?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
just
just had
heroes.
two.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely it still like respects group limits when you're spawning things
Yeah.
for most things, but we still were getting overwhelmed. We're like,
Well, we were unable to have a balanced party because we didn't have a healer. We
Yeah.
just went all red. you know?
I mean, I think we haven't won a single mission yet on the app.
Nope, haven't won yet. Almost won. We were one activation away from winning. And that's the thing. We were one activation away from, we think, winning because we would have almost done that goal, but it could have very well been like because we ran past all the monsters to do the goal, and we could have. We didn't get to the goal, but if we did, it could have been like, okay, now leave.
now kill all the
Yeah,
monsters.
now kill all the
Yeah.
monsters. Yeah, it could have been. That would have been really hard. I doubt it would be that way though. Well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Got anything else?
Yeah. I mean,
Get the app.
get the app.
Dude, for real. For real.
It was really nice being able to play this game as a group because since I'm normally the overlord, there are a lot of times when like we want to play Descent, but we really all want to play a game against Wesley, which is what they said. I don't talk to myself about that.
Pretty much any game that's everybody versus one player, it's us against Wes.
Yeah. So it was, which I love. I love being the overlord, but it was nice for our whole group to be able to get together and play Descent, this game that we love so much, and be on a group together.
Yeah.
Be on a group. Be in a group together.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll have a link down below where you can click to download the app. Again, it's free right now. There's going to be paid for campaigns in the future,
Add-ons.
which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
You can check us out on our other forms of social media,
Instagram, Facebook,
Twitter.
Twitter, the Twitters,
Yeah.
So
Twitter sphere.
subscribe. You'll never be bored.